The Galactic Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, crushing resistance wherever it arose. To them, war was a simple equation: superior technology, overwhelming force, and the calculated extermination of anything that dared to resist. Earth, a backwater planet of primitive mammals, was expected to fall within days. Imperial strategists, reviewing the brief history of human warfare, saw nothing remarkable. They scoffed at Earth's apex predators, lions, wolves, bears, declaring them laughably weak compared to the war beasts of the Empire. They had never heard of the honey badger. The first wave of the invasion struck without warning. Imperial dropships descended like a meteor storm, obliterating entire cities before ground forces even landed. Their plasma cannons turned streets into rivers of molten asphalt, and their mechanized legions crushed resistance under clawed steel. The Galactic Empire was efficient, methodical, and utterly confident in its victory. On the shattered outskirts of what had been Washington, D.C., Captain Logan Hayes crouched behind the wreckage of an overturned troop transport. His gear was scorched, his face streaked with soot and sweat. A ruined city stretched out before him, littered with human and alien corpses alike. He adjusted the grip on his rifle, exhaling slowly. "This wasn't supposed to be a damn slaughter," he muttered. "They hit us harder than expected," came the gruff voice of Sergeant Marcus Grizzly Carter. The Marine loomed over him, massive and unshaken, his blood-streaked combat knife resting on his thigh. "But we ain't out yet." Lieutenant Jake Holloway knelt beside them, recalibrating a damaged drone with deft fingers. His sharp eyes darted between its cracked display and the approaching enemy patrols in the distance. "They're using thermal scanners. We stay put too long, they'll pick us up." Hayes nodded, gripping his comm unit. "Deuce, you in position?" A low chuckle came through the earpiece. "Locked and loaded, Cap," replied Corporal Darnell Dusk Washington. From a sniper's perch somewhere high above, he had a perfect view of the battlefield. "Just say the word." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Light 'em up." A distant rifle cracked. An alien trooper's head snapped back, its body collapsing before its comrades registered the shot. Another fell, then another, panic rippling through the squad as they scrambled for cover. "Move," Hayes ordered. The team advanced through the ruins, striking fast, vanishing before the Empire could react. They weren't fighting a conventional war anymore. The enemy had them outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in every technical aspect. But the Empire had made one critical mistake. They assumed humanity would break. Hayes led his squad through the burning wreckage of what had been a shopping district, weaving between shattered vehicles and crumbling structures. Civilians had been butchered where they stood. Some had tried to fight back, their bodies still clutching crude weapons. The sight burned into him, igniting something deeper than rage. A low growl rumbled from Carter's chest. "These bastards don't deserve a clean fight." "They're not going to get one," Holloway said, setting a trip mine in the rubble. Hayes pressed a hand to his earpiece. "Collins, tell me you've got something." Dr. Ethan Collins' voice crackled through. "Depend on how you defined something. I've been analyzing their physiology from captured samples. Their exoskeletons are resistant to conventional rounds, but have a weak point near the second joint of their lower limbs. Strike there, and they drop fast." Hayes smirked. "Good work, document." "That's not all," Collins continued. "Their command structure is rigid, almost ceremonial. They expect enemies to behave predictably. Which means they have no idea what's coming," Deuce finished. A heavy tremor shook the ground. A towering war machine lumbered into view, its massive form bristling with plasma cannons. Imperial troopers fanned out around it, scanning for threats. The squad pressed against the ruins, hearts pounding. Carter exhaled through his nose. "That thing's a problem." Hayes' mind worked fast. They needed a distraction, something that would disrupt the Empire's calculated approach. His gaze flicked to the scattered remains of the city, then back to his squad. "They think they understand predators," he said quietly. Let's show them what a real one looks like. Holloway frowned. I don't follow. The honey badger, Collins said over the comm. It's fearless. It takes on creatures 10 times its size, and it doesn't stop attacking. Ever. Hayes grinned. We hit them hard, fast, and don't let up. No retreat, no hesitation. They won't know how to handle it. Carter cracked his knuckles. Now you're talking. The team sprang into motion. Holloway sent a drone buzzing toward the war machine, its signal mimicking the signature of an armored vehicle. The moment the enemy turned to engage, Deuce fired, striking the weak joint of the nearest trooper. It collapsed, screaming in its guttural tongue. Carter was already moving. He charged forward, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Plasma fire grazed past him, but he didn't slow. He slammed into the nearest alien, driving his knife through the exposed joint. It shrieked as Carter ripped the blade free and spun into the next target. Holloway's explosives detonated, sending debris and fire into the enemy ranks. Hayes and Deuce moved in tandem, precise and relentless. The war machine's cannons powered up, but the squad was already beneath its firing arc. Hayes scaled its massive leg, planting a charge along its undercarriage. A countdown blinked red. 5 seconds. Move, he yelled. The squad scattered just as the explosion tore through the machine's core. It collapsed in a fiery wreck, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. For the first time, the Empire hesitated. Their perfect war doctrine, their unshakable order, fractured under the sheer ferocity of the assault. These humans, these supposed weaklings, weren't breaking. They were attacking with a madness that defied logic. Hayes surveyed the battlefield, breathing hard. The enemy had retreated, if only for the moment. But something had changed. The Empire had underestimated Earth's predators. Now they would learn the truth. The Galactic Empire did not react well to failure. Within hours of the first human counterattack, new waves of alien reinforcements arrived, their forces recalibrated for the unexpected resistance. Heavier armor, tighter formations, aerial drone patrols. An overwhelming display of force meant to crush Earth's insurgents before they could fully adapt. But that was the problem. Humanity had already adapted. Logan Hayes crouched in the shadows of a ruined skyscraper, his armor coated in soot and blood. The battlefield below pulsed with alien patrols, their sleek, black exoskeletons gleaming under the burning sky. They moved differently now, cautious, uncertain. That hesitation was all the opening he needed. Their lines are tighter than before, Holloway murmured, adjusting his scope. They're learning. So are we, Hayes said. He tapped his earpiece. Carter, how's our little surprise coming? A deep chuckle rumbled through the comm, just about ready. Cap, gonna be a real bad day for these lizard freaks. Hayes glanced at the remains of the city, the streets now a maze of twisted metal and collapsed structures. Perfect hunting grounds. On my mark, he said. Deuce's voice crackled through. Got eyes on their comms officer. Take him out. They lose coordination. Do it, the rifle whispered, and a high-ranking alien collapsed mid-step, its body twitching as the squad around it panicked. Hayes grinned. That was the thing about the Empire. They functioned like a machine, every piece dependent on the next. Remove one critical cog, and the whole thing started to break. A distant explosion rocked the street as Carter's trap detonated, sending jagged shards of metal and concrete through the enemy ranks. Screeches filled the air as the first wave fell. Then came the second. The Empire's response was immediate. Plasma fire rained down, cutting through the ruins with surgical precision. Holloway swore. They're covering their flanks better than before. They think we'll hit the same way twice. Hayes smirked. Let's prove em wrong. He signaled to Collins, who had been tracking enemy biology. The scientist's voice was tense. Their armor has weak points along the inner plating. Standard rounds won't do much, but blunt trauma will crack it. Then we don't shoot, Carter said. We rip them apart. They struck like a hurricane. Hayes led the charge, closing the distance before the enemy could recalibrate. He slammed into the nearest alien, driving his reinforced knuckles into its throat. The exoskeleton cracked, and it dropped, twitching. Carter moved through the chaos like a wrecking ball, his sheer size turning each strike into a death sentence. Deuce, ever precise, fired point-blank into exposed joints, his rifle acting more like a scalpel than a gun. Holloway tossed a shock grenade into the next squad, the electromagnetic pulse frying their neural links. Disoriented, they staggered just long enough for Carter to tear through them with his bare hands. For the first time, the Empire's soldiers weren't just fighting back. They were retreating. Then the real threat arrived. A guttural roar echoed through the ruined city as a new war machine stepped onto the battlefield. Twice the size of the last one, its body bristled with reinforced plating, its weapons humming with a telltale glow of plasma cannons set to overload. A single barrage from that thing would level everything within half a mile. Hayes ducked behind cover, pressing his calm Collins. "Tell me you have an idea." The scientist's voice was tight with urgency. Their war machines use a thermal regulation system. Too much heat, and they auto-shut down to prevent overload. Hayes narrowed his eyes. How much heat? Enough to cook anything inside. Carter grinned. Sounds like a plan. Holloway was already moving. He tore open a crate of stolen alien munitions, yanking out 2 plasma charges. "We get these inside the vents, their own system will cook them from the inside out." "Deuce," Hayes said, "think you can make that shot?" The sniper let out a low whistle. "That's a damn tight angle." A beat of silence. "Yeah, I got it." They moved fast. Hayes and Carter took the front line, drawing the machine's fire with relentless attacks. Plasma rounds seared the ground around them, but they didn't stop. Carter, ever the human battering ram, used a fallen trooper as a shield, closing the distance in reckless, terrifying strides. The war machine turned, its cannons charging. "Deuce now!" A single shot rang out. The plasma charge sailed through the battlefield, slipping between the machine's reinforced plating. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vents exploded. The machine shuddered, its systems failing as its own reactor turned against it. A deafening roar split the air as it collapsed, molten metal pouring from its frame. The ground trembled as it hit the earth, silent and still. The battlefield was quiet. The enemy was gone. Hayes stood, breathing hard, surveying the wreckage. The Empire had come expecting an easy war, a swift conquest. Instead, they had found something else entirely. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. The air reeked of scorched metal and charred flesh. Smoke coiled through the ruined streets, twisting around broken towers and shattered vehicles. Logan Hayes adjusted his grip on his rifle, his knuckles white against the matte black frame. His squad stood beside him, their bodies battered, their eyes sharp. They had fought the Empire's best, and they were still standing. But the fight wasn't over. Across the ruined city, the last remnants of the invading force were regrouping. The Empire, for all its arrogance, was no fool. They had seen the cracks forming in their strategy and now moved with calculated fury, determined to erase the anomaly that was human resistance. Reinforcements had landed by the thousands, hardened elites, biomechanical monstrosities, and towering war machines bristling with alien firepower. Holloway knelt beside a half-destroyed console scavenged from an enemy outpost, his fingers working rapidly over the unfamiliar interface. "They're changing formation. Looks like they're drawing a perimeter around the city. They're trapping us in," Deuce muttered, his sniper rifle resting against his shoulder. "They want a clean sweep." Carter cracked his knuckles, rolling his shoulders. "Let 'em try." Hayes exhaled slowly. "We can't just fight our way through this one. We need to break them completely." Colin's voice crackled through the comm. "I might have something." "Make it quick, Doc," Hayes said. "Their high command isn't sitting in orbit anymore. The Empire doesn't trust automated war doctrine like we do. Their field commanders are down here now, coordinating from a central position. Hayes' pulse quickened. You know where? A brief pause. Northwest sector. They've turned the old financial district into a fortified command hub. If we hit them there, we don't just win this battle. We cripple their ability to coordinate across the entire continent. Hayes nodded. Then that's where we go. The squad moved through the ruins like ghosts, slipping past patrols, avoiding drones, striking only when necessary. The Empire's forces were spread thin, covering too much ground in their attempt to encircle the city. Their confidence was still there, but it was different now, tinged with unease, with wariness. They reached the outskirts of the command hub just before dawn. Towering structures loomed overhead, repurposed as bunkers, their windows lined with pulse cannons and sniper nests. Walker mechs patrolled the perimeter, their footfalls sending tremors through the ground. Shields shimmered around the complex, a near-impenetrable barrier of alien energy. Carter exhaled. That's a hell of a fortress. Hayes turned to Holloway. Can we breach it? Holloway studied the defenses, then pulled out a small, battered datapad. They're running a cascading energy grid. If we overload one node, it'll force a shutdown across the entire system. Deuce smirked. Tell me there's a way to do that from a mile away. There is, Holloway said, but it involves getting inside first. Carter grinned. Guess we're going in loud. Hayes gave a sharp nod. We hit hard, we hit fast. Take out their command, and this whole invasion falls apart. They moved in unison, striking at the weakest point in the defenses. Holloway's explosives shredded through the outer barricades, sending debris and alien bodies flying. Before the enemy could react, Carter was already inside, his sheer force tearing through the first squad he encountered. Hayes and Deuce followed, their shots precise, merciless. Alarms wailed. The Empire scrambled to respond, but they were too slow, too rigid. Humans fought like no species they had ever faced, unpredictable, relentless, utterly without fear. Holloway sprinted through the chaos, weaving between cover as he reached the primary energy node. He slapped a charge against its surface, his fingers flying over the control pad. 10 seconds. Hayes and the others carved a path toward the central tower, where the enemy commanders had retreated. Plasma fire tore through the air, but they pushed forward, closing the distance in brutal, close-quarters combat. The charge detonated. The shield grid flickered, then collapsed entirely. Deuce fired, and the first alien commander crumpled. Carter slammed through the doors, a storm of muscle and fury. Hayes followed, his rifle raised. The last of the Empire's high command stood before them. Tall, armored figures, their eyes burning with disbelief. This is your last chance, Hayes said. Call off the invasion. The lead commander snarled. You are nothing. We are the Empire. Hayes pulled the trigger. The war ended that night. The command hub fell, and with it, the Empire's grip on Earth. Their forces, leaderless and in disarray, scattered. The humans did not give chase. They did not need to. The message had been sent. They had underestimated Earth's predators, and they had paid the price.